Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Racing Rundown. My name is Aidan Molinaro. I'm a horse racing analyst. I'm here with track announcer Liam Molinaro, my co-host here on the Racing Rundown handicapping show. Today, we are very excited to be talking to you guys as we are going to cover the Pacific Classic, which we are less than 2 days away from over at Del Mar. Liam, tell us and our viewers why the Pacific Classic means so much.
Well, really, especially with the Breeders' Cup Classic at Del Mar this year, it's the local prep race. They're running, I believe, the 35th edition of it or something like that. Race started in 1991, and sort of the last couple of years we've had some lackluster fields in this race, but that is not the case this year. We have a lot of talent in this field, obviously headed by Nysos and journalism on the West Coast, and then we get the big East invasion from Fierceness, who we weren't even sure was going to run in this race until Mike Repole decided to throw him in this race a little late. Obviously, he's got Mind Frame in the Jockey Club Gold Cup this Sunday, but he's going to ship Fierceness out to the West Coast, and that really provides another level to this race because before it was really just looking like a match race of Nysos and journalism, but we get another multiple-time Grade 1 winner and a horse who ran second in the Breeders' Cup on this very track last year. It makes for a very exciting race and one of the better Pacific Classics we've seen recently.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited for it. We have three really good handicap horses, one of them being a 3-year-old in journalism that's taking on older for the first time in his career. So that'll be interesting to see how the 3-year-old crop of this year stacks up against the older horses. What do you say we just dive right into the field and talk a little bit about each horse?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Well, I'll start it off with number 1. Liam mentioned Fierceness. This is the horse owned by Mike Repole. Obviously, last year he was a really popular figure on the Derby Trail. Fierceness goes out for Todd Pletcher. Like you said about Mind Frame, he obviously is coming out to the West Coast because they don't want to run him against his stablemate Mind Frame in the Jockey Club Gold Cup. Like you mentioned, Liam. Fierceness in this spot, though, he did draw the rail, and even though he ran really good at Del Mar in last year's Breeders' Cup Classic, right up there on that really fast pace, and then running second to Sierra Leone, who may also be in the Jockey Club Gold Cup as well against Mind Frame there. But over here at Del Mar, I don't know if I love Fierceness in this spot with that rail post. That being said, he's a very dangerous horse, and he has shown an affinity for this racetrack and the ability to ship cross-country. So we never know with Fierceness. I'm not completely writing him off. What do you think about Fierceness, Liam?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think he's kind of a wild card. I mean, you just look at his running lines and it'll tell you just that. He'll fire some insane performances and then he'll turn in a clunker. You never really know what you're going to get from this horse. I think everyone was saying towards the end of his 3-year-old year last year, he was getting really consistent, obviously culminating with that second in the Breeders' Cup Classic where he kind of sat out right off that hot pace and only got beat a length and a half to Sierra Leone, who had the perfect setup in that race going 1.25 miles. He came back in his 4-year-old year. He's had a track record in the Ali Sheba Kentucky Derby weekend. But just looking back at this race, I don't really know who he was beating in that field. Most Wanted, Hall of Fame, Locked ran a really lackluster race that day. He came back in kind of a disappointing effort in the Met Mile at odds on. I know Raging Torrent, track was kind of speed favoring that day. Whatever, it was the Wilson Chute, kind of like a one-turn mile. He just was kind of disappointing that day. And again, last time out in the Whitney, he was 6-5. He, hit the front at the top of the stretch, opened up, 2 or 3, and then just, kind of stopped running at the 8th bowl and ends up running a bad 5th, beating almost 6 lengths. So, his races this year have been okay, kind of hard to judge. And then he's shipping to the West Coast. He gets here late Wednesday night. And he draws the rail. I think Fierceness, he's going to be the bigger price out of all 3 of the main contenders in this race. But I just don't think I'm going to be willing to play him in this spot.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. Let's move on to the 2-horse Midnight Mammoth. This horse goes out for Craig DeLassy. We saw him on FanDuel today. He was behind the analysts on the set, and he kind of made some comments saying that he's definitely going to go to the lead with this horse. We know he's going to come out there sending. He's a great gate horse. I just think I might stay away. Midnight Mammoth, stay away from him in here. He's a veteran. He loves Del Mar, loves the track. I just think it was kind of suspect. He ran second to Skippy Longstocking last time, who came back to show absolutely nothing in the Charlestown Classic. So I don't know how that class is going to hold up against these three superstars. So I'm not sure about Midnight Mammoth for me. What do you think, Liam?
Yeah, obviously Craig Delassie was saying, that they want to go right to the lead in this spot. I agree with him. I think this horse does his best running on the lead, and I think he does get brave. But again, like I was saying with Fierceness, you look at this horse last summer, he reeled off 3 in a row that ended with that win in the Cougar to second. And then he was planning to run in this race last year. Obviously something went wrong. He didn't run again until January at Turf Paradise, and then he just had a 4 or 5 stretch of races where he just ran horrible, just ran nowhere. Comes back at an allowance in April, and he won by 5.5. And he came back and ran an impressive second in the Gold Cup, like you said, to Skippy Longstocking. I just don't think this horse stacks up with the main 3 contenders in here, but he's definitely going to be a part of the early pace, and we'll see what he can do.
Yeah, let's move on to the 3-horse Ultimate Gamble. This horse goes out for Mark Glatt. He's 20-1 on the morning line. He's definitely going to be a long shot in here. This horse doesn't have a race farther than 1 mile on his sheet, as far as we can see in the form. 9 lifetime starts. Like I said, never gone this type of route of ground before. This is probably going to be a throwaway for me. I don't know if Ultimate Gamble gets the distance, gets Kimura, his regular rider, back in the saddle, but I think this is kind of Mark Lott taking a shot here. What do you think, Liam?
Yeah, I agree. I think this horse is going to have to get a lot faster. I just really don't think he stacks up, with some of the other horses in here. He's running second, beaten a neck. He was actually placed first last time to Arrow the Great, who just won the Long Acres Mile a couple of weeks ago. But I don't think any of those horses would be shorter than 40-1 in here. So, yeah, I agree. I don't think he's playable in here.
All right, let's move on to the 4-horse. This is Nysos. Goes out for trainer Bob Baffert. I personally would say this is the most anticipated start for any horse that I've seen this year. Maybe outside of the Sovereignty Journalism rematch in the Belmont, I was pretty excited to see that and see what would happen out on the track. But I am really excited to see Nysos get the distance test in here. He's never gone 1.25 miles. And as we know, all of the analysts across the country, that is the biggest talking point for them. Nysos, that's the biggest question mark. Can he get the distance? He's never done it before. He's shown extreme brilliance, but we don't know if he can get 1.25 miles. I think his style and just his running style and his ability to have gears kind of reminds me of those Justifies American Pharaohs. I'm not saying he's at that level yet. Maybe he can get there one day, but he reminds me of that kind of push button. He's able to just shut off and then re-brake. With that being said, those distance questions are valid because, I can't prove it until he does it. But I'm really excited to see it, and I think he's going to have a really, really big shot to win this one if he goes on with it. What do you think, Liam?
Yeah, I agree. The thing about Nysos is you look at his running lines. He's running these, 105 buyers, 108 in the Triple Bend, a big 102 in the San Diego. And I don't even think he was asked for his best last time in the San Diego. And he won by almost 3 open lengths. His stablemate Miramati was on the lead. He kind of tipped out at the top of the lane, and Pratt just kind of told him to go, and he opened up without, any further asking. He really didn't need his best running that day. I really don't think he's been tested his entire career. His biggest effort might have been in the Churchill Downs, coming back off that 15-month layoff in the slop, going 7/8 at Churchill in a huge field. And he ran second, beating the neck. He did for second with Banishing, who just won the Charlestown Classic. Bookham Dano was behind them, who's obviously reeled off 3 in a row since then. Mindframe's obviously going to be, first or second choice this weekend in the Jockey Club Gold Cup. So I have no question about whether this horse stacks up with the best in the country. A mile and a quarter is a little bit of a question mark, but I really don't think it is. I think the biggest question mark on this horse is is he going to fire his best race? And if he does, like you said, I think it's game over for everyone else in this field.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. That's definitely why I'm looking forward to it the most out of anybody in this field. Even though it's a great race overall, and there's 7 others in here, he's definitely the biggest. What if he does this? It could be amazing type of thing. Let's move on to the 5 real quick though. Indispensable is the 5 going out for trainer John Sadler. Gets Paco Lopez, so a new rider in the saddle. Obviously, he's coming over to Del Mar across the coast for the weekend. This horse coming out of the first condition last time, won by a neck. Obviously, the first condition allowance to the Pacific Classic is a huge jump. 15-1 on the morning line, I think, is pretty. I think they're giving him a little too much credit at 15-1. I think he'll end up being a longer price. What do you think about Indispensable in this spot, Liam?
I mean, he's interesting. Third start as a 4-year-old. He had some decent races towards the end of his 3-year-old year. Ran third in the Oklahoma Derby, and then second in the Zia Park Derby. So he's run some decent races. Was also second, about a year to the day, to behind the Baffert runner Muth in the Shared Belief Stakes just after breaking his maiden. First race of his 4-year-old year definitely wasn't very good. Went off as the 2-1 favorite, got beat 11 lengths. He comes back first weekend at Del Mar and was able to get a win. He beat Lyle's Song by a neck and brazenly. I don't think he stacks up against these horses. I think he is going to be a lot longer than that 15-1 morning line as well. But these types could always get better, and I could see him come running late and maybe hit the board.
All right, I think those are definitely valid points. Let's get on to the 6 horse, though. Another one of the superstars in here. The 6 is Journalism, and if you've been following our show, The Racing Rundown, you've heard a lot about Journalism on here. We've talked about him almost every show as we covered through the Triple Crown. Obviously, the impressive Preakness winner, he got bounced around at the top of the lane, was still able to persevere and win the Preakness, and obviously second in the Derby and Belmont, behind Sovereignty, who many consider to be maybe the best racehorse in training, definitely the best 3-year-old, maybe the best racehorse in training. But I think these next few months will definitely iron that out for everyone and kind of affirm or deny their opinions. We shall see, though. Journalism, though, finally gets to run out of his own stall here. We know he can get the mile and a quarter. He doesn't have to face anyone named Sovereignty in this spot. Obviously going up against Nysos and the names like Fierceness. But Journalism should have a huge shot in here. If he gets a clean trip, Umberto gets him out in the clear, and he comes with his run in the lane, he should definitely be making it interesting late, I would think. What do you think, Liam?
Yeah, he's obviously a huge player in here. I think the only question with Journalism, like you were saying, he's only beating 3-year-olds, and obviously both the times he's matched up with Sovereignty, he has proven to be no match late in the race. His last couple of wins, he's been all out to beat Gosger, who's a nice 3-year-old, but is he Nysos level? Is he even the Fierceness level that we've seen if he fires his best? But the mile and a quarter should suit him perfectly. This horse is just, he doesn't have gears necessarily. I feel like he's just a kind of a grinder in a good way. He just, when they get after him, he just comes with his sustained run every time, and that's why he's always been on the board every start of his career. The mile and a quarter should suit him perfectly. He should be right there, coming right there at the top of the lane, and we'll see if he can run down whoever's in front.
Yeah, I think that it's a great point. I think with the wearing down, I think that you pointed that out about his style is where I talked about earlier how Nysos kind of has that push button where Pratt can just send him away from the gate, shut him down on the backside, and then ask him again, and he re-breaks. I think Journalism's more, if you watch him, everybody watches Umberto in the races, he's always kind of asking a little bit, almost the whole race, which you don't really see a lot. But I think Journalism just has those perfect mechanics to his stride that he always just wears you down. And then, like you said, he's still running triple-digit Beyer, so we know the horse is fast. So obviously I've been a big fan of his all year, and I really want to see him run well. Hopefully all of the big three fire their best shot, and we get to see a tremendous horse race. What do you say we move on to the 7 horse, though, just outside of journalism here? That is the long shot Lure Him In at 20-1 on the morning line. Going out for Sam Walensky, was on the East Coast before, but made his last start at the end of July at Del Mar in the 3rd condition allowance race against horses you mentioned, Arrow the Great, the Long Anchors Mile winner, and Ultimate Gamble was second in there, just about a neck in front of Lure Him In, beating him out for second in there. Ultimate Gamble, another long shot in this race. I think Lure Him In, I think Walensky's just throwing him in here to try to get a piece of that $1 million purse. I don't really think he thinks he has a tremendous shot to win. Obviously, they would love to, but I think they're in here to try to just hit the board. I think they'd be ecstatic with that. What do you think, Liam?
Yeah. No, I mean, there's no knocking this horse. He's an 11-time winner. He's made close to 700,000. I was lucky enough to call his race 2 back at Gulfstream when he won the overnight handicap there, going a mile and a 16th. They just put him right on the lead. He broke really sharp. He was able to hold off those horses. He only came back with an 87 buyer speed figure. He's an 8-year-old getting kind of long in the tooth. I agree. I don't really think they expect to win this race or even really be close. But even a 4th or 5th in this spot would net them a lot of money, probably more than a win would be in any other spot for him at Del Mar. So I think they're just taking a shot that he can run a decent race.
Yeah, and I'd say for Lure Him In too is he's not a rocket ship. I don't think he's going to be close to the lead, especially in this type of race. But he does have some tactical speed. So if he can be 3, 4, 5 lengths off the lead, and then he can grind and hang on, who's to say he doesn't hit the board? I could see it happen at a long price in here. We both agree that Lure Him In's got an outside shot to try and hit the board here in the Pacific Classic on Saturday, and if he does, I can almost guarantee he will at long odds. So he's giving you some value underneath if you do like Lure Him In there in your exotics. Let's move on to the 8 horse, though. The 8th and final horse here on the far outside, that is Tarantino for trainer Pete Urton. I think this is an interesting player in here just because he has a lot of speed, and I think he's definitely going to be involved early, as these connections have to think that's one of their best chances is to be up near the lead. I don't think they want to see Nysos and Fierceness in front of them. Their chances of catching them, I would think, is pretty low. So I think Tarantino and Edwin Maldonado would have to go from the gate here. So I think he's going to cross over, and he's going to be right there with either Fierceness or Nysos or whoever else, Midnight Mammoth, who wants to show speed with him. So I think he's definitely going to have his imprint on this race. I just don't know where he's going to be in the final 1/8 of a mile. What do you think, Liam, for Tarantino? Obviously, he's a savvy veteran. He's had a great career so far, made $500,000. So no slouch, but what do you think about this spot, Liam?
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, you got to respect what he's done. Making over $500,000, but yeah, he wasn't. He was near the lead, pressing the pace there in the San Diego, and just couldn't go with Nysos. It didn't finish in front of Miramati either. It was finished a distant 3rd that day, and as well in the Gold Cup, 2 back at the same distance, going a mile and a quarter. He was behind Midnight Mammoth and Skippy Longstocking, and also behind Extensive. So I just don't really think this horse stacks up, with the main contenders in here. Obviously, Craig Delassie was saying on FanDuel earlier today he thinks this is his main pace rival to Midnight Mammoth, and I kind of agree. I think he's kind of got to go from the outside. He's got to try and cross over and get forward position, but I don't think he's going to be there late.
Yeah, I could definitely envision a scenario where Midnight Mammoth sends, Tarantino sends, they both kind of make their own pace together, and Fierceness tucks in right behind them. I would say he's not going to be too far off because, like Joe Talamo was saying on FanDuel today, I agree with him. Johnny has to send a little out of the gate. I mean, you can't be in the one hole and not send, especially with a horse like that who likes to be forwardly placed. And then I could see Fierceness and Nysos just tucking in right behind those 2 leaders and journalism behind them, and then we'll see what happens when they turn for home. But what do you say now we get to our picks now? We'll let you guys know our top 3 in the race. So we'll give you First, second, and third, you can use that as a trifecta, exacta, win bet, however you want to play the Pacific Classic. Definitely take our picks into account as well as your own opinion. I'll start out first with mine. To win, I am going to go to Nysos. I don't like to go to the 8-5 morning line, but I just can't help but pick this horse here, because if I were to go in another direction and he wins by 8 lengths or something like that, I would definitely be shaking my head and be disappointed myself. So I'm going with Nysos. I think he's just too talented. And if you look at his Del Mar record, and in his second start, I believe, in the Bob Hope, won by 8 lengths there, ran extremely fast, and he beat a horse by the name of Stronghold. So that field has held up its form, the Bob Hope of that year of 2023, that is, in the winter there at that winter meet at Del Mar. And then obviously in the San Diego in his last start, he was very impressive. Hardly, like you said, Liam, hardly asked for anything in that race in the San Diego and just drew away with his ears pricked. So I'm going to go with Nysos on top. I like that Del Mar record. He's a nose away from being undefeated. He's going to be my top choice. With my second choice, I'm going with Journalism, the 6 horse. I think he's way too consistent to leave off your tickets, and I think it's going to be him or Nysos 1-2. Obviously, I don't really have to explain a lot about him. I talked about earlier how much I like this horse, and he finally gets to run out of his own stall. Just Mike McCarthy, they'll walk him right over there. I'm sure he'll be relieved to see that on race day. For third, I'm going to put a bit of a price. We talked about Midnight Mammoth, 12-1. I'm hoping it'll be higher than that morning line of 12-1. I'm going to put him here for third. Midnight Mammoth, like you said, he's going to show speed. Craig Delassie said it, but he does get brave, like you said. That was a great point. He gets brave and he fights on, and I think he's definitely going to get a minor award here in the Pacific Classic. What are your top 3, Liam?
Yeah, I went to the number 4 Nysos on top as well. I think this horse, like you said, possesses gears that none of the other horses in this race have. He's 2 for 2 over the local surface here. I don't think a mile and a quarter will be any problem for him. I think Flavien Prat just gets him away from the gate in good order, settles down, gets a good spot, and when it's time to go, he presses the button. I don't think he'll be too far off this pace, which definitely should help him in a race like this, especially going a mile and a quarter. So he's going to be my top pick in here. For second, I also did go to the number 6 Journalism. He's just a hard horse to leave off your top 3. He's so consistent. I think the farther is the better for this horse. He's just a long stride. He's got that grinding type. He just wears you down. So he's my pick for second. I think he's going to be rolling late, but I think if Nysos gets the jump on him and the acceleration and quickness we've seen from him, I don't think Journalism's going to catch him, but we'll see. It should be a very interesting race. I'm definitely looking forward to it. And then for third, I did go to the number 1 Fierceness. I really did try to get a price in here. I looked at every other horse in this field, but I can't really see anyone else running in the top 3. I definitely could see Fierceness running off the board, but you have to respect what he's done. The only reason I'm not picking him to win or even to run second, I really like this horse. I do. With that huge second in the Breeders' Cup last year over this track and the same exact surface, he was just coming into that race a lot better than he was this year. He was coming off a win in the Jim Dandy over Sierra Leone, and then arguably his best career win in the Travers or over Torpedo Anna and Sierra Leone. So he was just in career best form. This year he's been kind of inconsistent, reverting to his early 3-year-old ways. But I'm going to put him in third. I think he's the most likely to run third, because I think even if he doesn't fire his best race, even if he runs that Hunter Buyer that he did just, last month in the Whitney, I think that's enough to finish like a distant third, maybe beaten 6 or 7 lengths if Nysos and Journalism are battling it out like we think they will. So it's ultimately going to be Nysos over Journalism, over Fierceness for me in this year's Pacific Classic.
I like a lot of the points you made, and I definitely respect Fierceness as a runner as well. I mean, he's an amazing, he's an Eclipse champion, but like you said, it kind of reverting to those 3-year-old ways. I mean, during his early 3-year-old season, I don't care how impressive his most recent race was. I never would have put money on him in the next start because you didn't know what you were going to get. It's kind of reminds me of a horse named Byron. that Bob Baffert used to train, and he was hit or miss. I mean, he'd win a $7 million race, and then the next race he'd get beat 40 lengths. So there was no consistency there, and Fierceness kind of reminds me of that. The only reason I'm going with the price like a Midnight Mammoth underneath is I just think Fierceness is either going to win, run second by a head, or be off the board. I don't know if there's an in-between there. It's kind of like that Whitney we saw. He was at the top of the stretch, and he looked like he had no excuses, and he just kind of petered out. Maybe that was Johnny V taking care of him. I don't really know. I mean, they look like they powered away from him there at the end. Sierra Leone running away from him. But, yeah, that's kind of just why I had to leave Fierceness out of my top 3. But I definitely respect a lot of the points you had about Fierceness. What do you say now? We move on to the section of our show where we give our value pick out. So this is where we can pick any race on the card here in the Pacific Classic card and just select a win bet that we have that we think will provide some value for you guys. What do you say, Liam?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. You want to start us off?
Yeah, I'm looking to, what is it, race number 9. It's the Green Flash. Arguably, I think this is one of the best races on the card other than the Pacific Classic, or the one I'm most looking forward to watching. How many? He got 15 horses in this race. 15 horses, 12 will run. I'm really looking at the number 13 wound up. He's not my undercard play, but I'm just, we've all been infatuated with this horse. We saw him closing day at Pleasanton. Obviously, get claimed for $10,000, and then he's rattled off 5 insane races, 5 high 90 buyers, one of them even hitting a 102. This horse has just been on a different level, so hopefully he can draw into the field if someone does scratch that is in the main body of the field. But my undercard play in this race is the number 9, First Piece, for the Mark Latt barn. Mike Smith has the ride. This horse hasn't been seen since winning the Eddie D last year on the big California Crown Day at Santa Anita. He really, likes that downhill turf going 6.5. This horse is just so consistent. He's run 15 times, 5 wins, 5 seconds, 2/3. He's never run at the 5/8 distance, though, which is very interesting. His first time at this trip. He drives a really good post 9, just inside of Motorious, who's definitely going to be the betting favorite in here. But he's a horse who likes to take back. So I don't think First Piece is going to be on the lead or like anywhere near it, really. But I think he's going to get a good stocking trip, especially from that 9-hole. Mike Smith has been on him every start on the sheet, so he knows this horse. He knows where to spot him. I'm going to take a shot on him first start, going 5/8 here in the Green Flash.
All right. No, I think that's one of the best races on the card aside from the Pacific Classic. I agree with you. Obviously drew a big field, but not only is there quantity in the race, there's a lot of quality as well. I think it's definitely probably the most impressive turf sprint field we've had in California the entire year, I'd say. I think Boss Sully could also provide some value in there. He's been really sharp. Yeah. We know he loves the racetrack. So obviously First Piece, he's a legit runner. Boss Sully, though, I like his style. He sits just off the pace. And usually in a spot like this, he'd be odds on. But I think with, like you said, with the presence of Motorious taking a lot of the money, I think you could get a good price if you love Boselli as well. Anyway, though, my value pick is in the Del Mar Mile. That is race 5 on the card. It's a grade 2 race worth $300,000. Drew an 8-horse field. I like the far outside horse Full Serrano for trainer John Sadler. Now getting Juan Hernandez, last seen with Joel Rosario in the irons in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. So he won that race. That was his 3rd start in the United States. Ran 3 times at Del Mar for John Sadler last August, twice in August, and then November in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. He actually ran 2nd in last year's Pacific Classic. Mixto won that race. Obviously, I don't think it was the best Pacific Classic, but I also think Full Serrano's best distance is about a mile. So it works out for this spot on Saturday. Turf record, that is interesting, and that's kind of a question mark, although he was 1 for 6 with 1 second and 1 third out of 6 total starts. Like I said, in his homeland of Argentina. Who was he running against? We don't really know. but I really like his post being in the far outside with Juan Hernandez. I know he's going to send him away from there, and Fierceness has a ton of early speed, just natural speed that's going to put him into the race. I think he's going to get a nice tracking trip and get a jump on some of those deep closers that we see in those mile races, kind of like King of Gosford, who's a little tactical, but he'll be behind Full Serrano, Zio Joe, other horses in the race, formidable man that like to come from farther back. I think Juan and Full Serrano can get the jump on these. And 4-1 morning line, if you get 5-1, 6-1, I would definitely put some money down on him. That is my value play for this Saturday, Liam.
I like it.
All right. Well, everybody, that is our show, our Pacific Classic show for Racing Rundown here. We are so glad that you guys watched. Please like, subscribe to our channel, comment down below. Let us know if you have any crazy picks or value plays and who you like in the Pacific Classic on Saturday. We love to hear what you guys have to say. Thanks so much again for watching, and we'll see you next time on the next episode of Racing Rundown.